Hey guys, welcome back or to the Wild Courage podcast. Today I am in Extra Mile Arena in Boise, Idaho. Sitting down with Cory Asbury. Thanks for coming on here, bro.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, real quick, we met in Jackson Hole last summer at Heaven on Earth.
Yep.
Briefly, and that was a special weekend.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool to get to be in that small of a venue and hang out with my family in Wyoming, Grant and Jane and Luke and Peter and all that.
Beautiful spot too, man. Jeez.
Yeah. Had you ever been there?
Nope.
Yeah, that's a pretty special place. I moved there when I was 19 for one summer, and like 10 years later, I was like, oh, geez, it's easy to get stuck there for sure.
I could see that.
The Super Bowl, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like watching the Super Bowl all the way through the end, and I'm like, couldn't be. And then I see on your social media, like, you're like right down there on the field. How in the world did that happen?
Man, a lot of things. I'm buddies with the kicker, Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker. He is strong believer, strong Catholic, actually.
Really? Nice.
And gotten to know him past maybe a year or so. Met on social media, which is kind of the way it happens nowadays, which is weird. But he was shouting out some of the music, and I was like, I hit him back like, bro, I'm glad you dig it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, man, we got to get you out to a game. So exchanged numbers, texting back and forth. He's like, oh, you got to come to this game. Couldn't make any of the games work literally the entire year. And then finally, the Super Bowl, he was like, can you do it? And we happened to be playing L.A., Los Angeles, the night before, had a day off the day after, and then we were playing Reno, Nevada the day after that. So I rerouted the bus.
To Vegas.
Rerouted the bus to Vegas, literally showed up at the team hotel that morning, rolled off of my own tour bus at the team hotel, got out, met up with everybody, rolled over, and had literally every pass you could ever want on field, pregame, postgame party. It was crazy.
That's incredible. I mean, at some point, you're probably just like pinching yourself, like, how did I end up here?
I met so many cool people. I got to hang with so many of the players. I met Taylor Swift, which is flipping crazy. Only people I didn't get to meet were Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But
you were 5 feet away from them.
Oh, I mean, they were right there.
Yeah,
I could have reached out and touched them. It was crazy, bro. I mean, you can't explain it. It was wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, to me, jumping into your story, you're on a very short list of people in your genre that I feel like are honest about a lot of things. And for me, it's you, a girl named Nina Landis. I don't know if you've ever heard of her.
Yeah.
She's incredible. And Jake Hamilton.
Yeah, I know Jake too.
Yeah. So this is a big honor for me because you guys, like, your lyrics are so vulnerable and raw and real. It's moving and powerful, and you're actually saying something, which is what I'm kind of drawn to, which is sometimes hard to find.
Man. I'll take that. That's a high compliment.
No shade on anyone else, but
I get it.
I'm kind of in the game of being real, so
yes,
I appreciate you.
No, thank you, man. That means a lot.
Yeah. So, how in the world did you get to be where you're at today? Like, I on purpose don't Google anyone.
Sure.
Because I feel like I'm more curious if I don't know your story.
Yeah.
But
gosh, I mean, so many years, so many things. Life is so many choices, right? But I've always loved music. I've always loved, especially songwriting. For me, it was therapeutic. It was what I would do when I was down. It was what I would do when I was up. It was an outlet. It was an expression for me to get the things out that I was feeling inside. And I think for men, a lot of us stay locked up. You stay sort of quiet and silent, and you suffer through life. Maybe even you suffer through the highs as well. But for me, it was a way to go, here's everything that's inside of me, and it helps. It helps my mental state, helps my psyche, helps my heart, my spirit, everything. So I just always loved music. I always loved songwriting, and basically, started to try to go after it, full time, quote unquote, when I was like 18 years old, 19 years old, and it was always through the lens of ministry. So like, via church or worship leading at a church or whatever. And I would just step through doors as they open. People say, "Oh, why don't you make a record? Like you got a bunch of songs." I said, "Okay, sounds good, cool." And then, this other label says, "Hey, we really love your stuff. We really want to sign you." It's kind of a step up, right? And it was like, "All right, cool. Like let's do it." And I was never so determined that I was freaking out. It was really open and free and just like, "Okay, Lord, if this is what you want, if this is what you have for me, awesome. I'm following, and you'll open the doors." And I didn't make any money in the beginning. I was poor as heck, and we just kept doing it. Got married, and we were like, "Okay, let's do this together." And I don't know, man, and ended up here today somehow.
Where are you raised?
Born and raised in North Carolina. It's called Franklin, North Carolina, which is close to Asheville. Most people know Asheville.
What, did you grow up in the church?
Ish, yeah. I mean, I always tell people, like, I grew up in the church because my family, my mom and dad got saved when I was like 5. So, I did the typical, like, "Oh, I'm 5 years old, let me give my life to Jesus." Didn't know what it meant, didn't know what I was supposed to do. Kind of just went to church and tried to do the right things. And growing up, I was a really bad kid. Like, I was not living a church or Christian lifestyle at all. But, when I went to church, I'd tell my church friends, like, "Yeah, I'm sold out." Like,
going
whatever.
through, me too.
And then I'd go to high school and, be an absolute moron every day, drinking, smoking, girls. Not smoking girls, but you get what I'm saying. Drinking, smoking, girls. Yeah. All the stuff that most people get into. So it just wasn't real to me. It was just an idea. Christianity or church was this sort of thing that you try to do. And if you do it well, maybe you'll go to heaven one day. And if you didn't, which is what I was doing, you're probably going to burn in hell. That was my idea of Christianity.
Yeah, if you perform and work real hard at it.
Yep.
Like some of the kids in youth group.
Yep. Then you make it.
Yeah.
If not, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the same as mine. I was like, in hindsight, it was like definitely my parents' deal. Mm-hmm. And it's, when you're growing up, it's what you do.
Yep.
And for me, and I'll propose this as a question, like, I could not, God's always good, right? That's what we learn in church. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't work through some of the stuff that happened to me if God's good and in control. Mm-hmm. I couldn't make that math work. So the second that I could make my own choices, I was gone. Because I think that we're always like, well, if this is true, how can this be true?
Totally.
And so did you experience that at all too? Like,
yeah, I think I did. Honestly, I probably wasn't wrestling with questions like that, which are very deep and philosophical and sort of heady even, until I was married. And not because I got, that sounds funny. Not because I got married, but because we started having kids, and then Lily, our second kid, she almost died a few times when she was little, like 3 months. Stopped breathing, turned purple. Anna drove her to the hospital, freaking out, and we thought she was dead. They put her on the table. Everyone was kind of like, "This is not happening," and they did the thing, and got the little whatever, and she came back, and that happened 3 more times, where she would stop breathing, and we never really got any answers on that, to be honest with you. But it was in that moment where I started wrestling with that very question. Hey, God, I'm out here trying to live a godly lifestyle. I'm full-time in ministry at that point in my life, because I actually legit did get saved at like 19 years old, even though I said I was saved before that. But I'm sitting there going, I don't believe that you're good. I don't believe that you're kind. I don't believe that you're any of those things that I grew up hearing in church. This is BS. Like, it can't be true, because my daughter is on the table almost dead right now. And I remember screaming and freaking out in the hospital. What the, just going nuts. And, I look back in retrospect and I think, it was the kindness of God to shake me out of some of the lies that I was believing about him. Because the truth is, I was believing in my heart, even though I said you're good, I believed, no, you're mean. You're vindictive. You're like my dad was. You're just waiting to smite me. You're waiting to throw that lightning bolt and just take me out, you know? And that's what I actually believed, even though I said when I led worship at church, you're so good, Lord, you know, whatever. Absolute BS. And I think, you know, God's kind to shake us out of those lies sometimes. He puts us in situations where we have to actually wrestle with those questions. And for me, it was almost the death of my daughter that I started to go, wait a sec, I don't believe you're good. Show me that you are. Just prove it. Do it. Go ahead. And I opened the door, and then boom, he started doing it over and over. And that was a remarkable time in my life and my wife's life, our family's life, because of a really difficult situation.
Yeah, I think we're always trying to reconcile, right, between what we've been taught in church and then real life. And when those don't add up, it does shake us to the core of our belief system. For me, it was like, if God's in control, and not to make this big theological deal, but for me, it's what changed everything.
Yeah.
Because if God's in control of everything and he's good, how in the world was I sexually abused? Dad married 5 times, mom married 3 times, tons of abuse. How I couldn't reconcile that in my little heart and mind. And so I couldn't trust him. And it wasn't until I could picture him being in those rooms with me, weeping over what was happening to me, that I found that goodness and that kindness too.
Yeah.
But it really was a theological shift in God's sovereignty.
Yeah.
And from what the denomination I grew up in of understanding his sovereignty is this ruler that is in control and in charge of everything. And, you know, you get the well-meaning people like, oh, he can use all things for good. And I'm like, that's a God I don't want anything to do with. You know what I mean? It's like, and then I remember a pastor that I was going to church under one night on a Sunday night, he said, what if I told you God's not in control of everything? I'm like, you're going to burn in hell, dude. Like, I'm pretty sure lightning's coming. And then over the next few months, he kind of unpacked the sovereignty piece, and it was like, oh, that actually broke Jesus's heart.
Yeah.
That those things happened to me. And then it like healed me.
Yeah.
In so many deep ways of where I could trust him again.
Yeah.
But it is that reconciliation piece I think we're always looking for, right?
Yeah, I mean, I say that all the time. Life is reconciling the goodness of God with the absolute garbage that happens to us and through us. Like,
yeah, and
that is what it is.
People that have free will can go do whatever they want and make choices. Do you find, you mentioned your dad. I see this a lot in sitting with men that didn't have the best of fathers. It's hard for them to look at a good God who's for them through the same lenses in which they look at their earthly father through. Is that something that you ever had to struggle with?
Absolutely, yeah. The first place that I was ever full-time in ministry had a really big focus on Jesus. Never talked about the Father. And that was actually good for me at the time because my relationship with my dad was so messed up. I wouldn't have been able to reconcile those two things in the beginning. And it wasn't until I felt like I knew Jesus, the goodness of Jesus, the kindness of Jesus, what he did on the cross, et cetera, that I could sort of open my heart to the idea that the Father of Jesus was the one who started and the one who loved me. And it was actually like reading a lot of Brennan Manning stuff, who's a hero of mine, a lot of Rich Mullins' stuff, where they had such a grasp on the kindness of the Father that it started to make sense to me, because I went, wait. I've always thought if my dad was this way, then the Heavenly Father must be the same. He's pissed off at me just like my dad here is.
Yep.
I'm not big enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not cool enough, I'm not whatever enough. And I'll never be enough for my earthly dad. Or at least I wasn't, when I was a kid, and that's obviously your formative years. So I looked at God the same way. I'm like, he's just up there pissed off at me going, what an idiot Cory is. He'll never stack up. Like I made him with all this potential, and he's a moron. Like
he's blowing it. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's missing it. He's not good enough. Excuse me. That's the way that I always pictured God the Father in heaven. And honestly, it wasn't really till I became a dad myself that things changed for me. And I don't know if that's probably a lot of people's experience, but I remember holding Gabriel, my first and only son. He's 14 now, for the first time, and looking into his eyes, and he was an ugly little sucker, to be honest. Like, he was an alien.
I have one of those too.
Dirtbags, like, yikes. He's a handsome kid now, but man, when they're first born,
yep.
Some parents are like, they're so beautiful, and I'm like, no, they're slimy and they look
hilarious.
like aliens, bro.
You're the only other person that I've heard say that, because I would say that same thing all the time.
Dude, they're funny looking, beady little eyes, squint, like squash little head. But I remember looking into his eyes, his face for the first time, and thinking like, oh my gosh, like, there's nothing this little kid could do to make me love him anymore. Right now, he couldn't earn my affection. He couldn't, all of a sudden look at me, Dad, you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. Like, he didn't have to reciprocate anything. And I knew in that moment that there was nothing that he could do to make me love him any less. Which for me, growing up, I always felt like I had to do a lot to get my dad to approve or to think I was strong enough or whatever. And in that moment, holding my own son, it was like, no, this kid doesn't have to do anything. And then I'm reading about, beginning of Genesis, Adam and Eve in the garden, and God looks at his creation. He looks at Adam and he goes, it's very good. Everything else was good, which is awesome. And then he goes to Adam. Adam hadn't done jack. Like, he hadn't done a thing. And God looks at him and goes, that's very good. Comes down and walks with him in the cool of the day every day. Adam did not prove anything. He never had a stage. He didn't have lights. He didn't have songs. He didn't have anything. He just walked with God in the cool of the day. That was like literally his job. And I went, wait a sec, like, why do I feel like I got to earn this? Like, we don't. And then, wrote a song called Reckless Love that everyone's like, they like it or whatever, which I'm very happy about. But the verses were based out of that. Before I spoke a word, you sang over me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. I didn't do anything to get to this place. You just freaking like me. That's asinine. Like, that's a stupid concept. Like, that's crazy.
It's hard to comprehend.
But I felt that way about my kid.
Until you have kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That changed everything.
Yeah. Did you ever reconcile with your dad?
Yeah, and through really difficult conversations. It was no fun having to tell your dad, hey, you really jacked me up. You know what I mean? Like, hey, our relationship was really difficult. You used to scream and yell and cuss and come home pissed off from work and stressed out from your life, and you'd take it out on your family. But it had to that conversation had to happen, or else I'd just be sitting here with it all bottled up, And he didn't love hearing that, but at the same time, he was able to go, you're right. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. That was messed up, and apologize and repent. And that's when I think, reconciliation can take place, but it's through really difficult conversations.
Yeah, I've had to do that myself with my mom, who left, and I stayed with my dad. And then it was the scariest thing I've ever done. And since then, because I've talked about it on here, I've encouraged and helped a lot of guys walk through that hard conversation. But the healing that happens in the midst of having the courage to go to your dad or mom and have that conversation is so freeing and powerful. And also, we don't have the control of the outcome of that conversation. So, as you know, you have to be pretty careful going into it with your expectations. But I've just seen so many guys have that conversation like you had the courage to have with your dad. Yeah. And it brings a lot of peace and redemption into the situation.
Yep.
But it does suck.
It's hard. It's real hard.
Yeah.
But that's how God works, man.
Yeah, it's scary, hard things. I think peace is always tends to be on the other side. It's like some kingdom principle or something. Because I've never found it to not be the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you only grow through the difficult. I find in my life, I coast. when life's easy, man, I'm just chilling and I'm coasting. I'm not really growing, and my heart's not, enlarging in love or whatever. It's like, then all of a sudden you go through something really difficult and you're like, oh my God, we came out on the other side of that and our relationship is so much deeper. Whether it's with your family, your wife, your kids, or God, it's like, I think that's how he designed it. That's James 1, count it all joy.
Oh, it's
when you fall into various trials. And I'm like, I hate that. Like, that sucks. But you come out, maybe it takes a long time, but you come out on the other side eventually. You're like, damn, I got something to say now. I experienced that, and I learned a lot from that. That's where I've grown the most in my life.
Yeah, same. Like, James 1's my life verse, so it's funny you said that, because I've had to cling to that through a lot of my life.
Yeah.
But it is true, I think, that had you not experienced the things that you've experienced, you're writing a much different song.
Absolutely.
Right?
100%.
And that's the power of our story.
Yep.
And how we communicate that. It can be used for good. Mm-hmm. But you got to stick in it. Mm-hmm. And it's crappy and it sucks and it's scary, and the fear of not being accepted or being misunderstood
mm-hmm.
is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But there does seem to be some principle to it that's like,
it just works. Yeah, one of my leaders used to say, if you don't quit, you win. I'm like, yeah.
That's it. I've heard somebody say that too. Like, you want to know how Christianity works? You just don't give up.
Just don't give up.
You don't quit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, like, all the trials my wife and I have been through, like, I'm so grateful for him now. Mm. I'm so grateful for him now. In the times it was, obviously hard and scary, but man, if you go through some hell and you come through the other side, it really does. All the cliches kick in, right?
It's real. They're there for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you wrote Kind and that came out and I saw it on social media, I think you were sitting
mm-hmm.
in a stairwell when you sang it.
Yeah, with Anna.
That's with your wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I mean, that had to come from, like you said, your experiences and having your ass kicked and not quitting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that song hits people because they've had those experiences. They've had those same experiences, whether it's, a marriage almost not working or not working, losing a kid, losing a baby. How many people do you know that have had a miscarriage and how difficult that is? My sister's had two. My sister-in-law has had two. Anna and I have never personally lost a baby, which, thank God, whatever. But it's like there's nothing like that pain. And I think Christianity doesn't like to name it, doesn't like to say, this is what it is. They're like, oh, I'm in a valley. What the hell does that mean?
Or when somebody dies, they're in a better place.
Yeah, I'm like, bro.
So invalidating.
This stuff is hard, man. But we all experience these types of things. It's common to all men and women, obviously. So, it's from a lot of deep experience, a lot of life, and the people that I wrote it with. There's 3 other guys on that song, and one of them did lose their marriage. Another one, lost multiple babies. Like I said, people close to me, multiple babies. And I think we just wanted to name it and say this is what happens sometimes, and it's not pretty, and it's not fancy, and it's not church. Church likes to tie everything up in a pretty bow and end every good story as like, oh, we're on the top of the mountain now. But sometimes you're not. Sometimes sometimes you feel like you're in hell. And I can't remember what country band it was. If you're going through hell, keep on going.
Yeah.
It's like that's real. But that song is. I'm so grateful the way that it's touched people. And I watch. We're on this Hits Deep tour with Toby Mac, who's like
How crazy
He's a
is that?
legend, man.
Yeah,
He's
for sure.
amazing. But his demographic is very much like a radio listener. And Kind is not necessarily a radio song, even though it is at radio right now, which is incredible. Like, people are really clinging to it because I think people crave that honesty. But I watch people in these rooms, and we do that song, and it's like, it's crazy. Like, people that have never heard something like that, I just watch them weep. In those first couple lines, just boom, they're just crying. It's crazy, man. And
That's what happened to me.
yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful for that because obviously that's why we wrote it, so people could connect to it.
I think that's, like you're saying, it's so powerful to feel something so painful inside and for somebody else to say it. Mm-hmm. It's not only validating that pain, but you just don't feel alone in it.
Yeah.
To hear somebody else say it and to be honest about it, especially again in the genre that you sing in.
Yeah.
It's rare.
Very.
And I think the world is starving for authenticity.
Yeah.
And for real.
Especially Christianity, especially the church, man. Like, there's no mystery in the church. We want to have every answer. Every pastor on a platform wants to know exactly what to say to the person that just lost a baby or a marriage. And I'm like, you don't know what to say. There's nothing to say in this moment. Nothing's going to help. Sit with them. Cry with them. Watch their house burn down with them. Like, that's what life is, and that's what friendship is. But I feel like we want to have every answer. We remove the mystery from every situation because we're afraid of it. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. I haven't figured it out, but I'm like, dude, if I lose my dad, or my mom passes away tomorrow, I don't need someone to call me and tell me why it happened. Oh, well, she was sick and blah, 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 and God just wanted to take her, and, this is just how it works. I'm like, no, stop. Just come over. We'll have a glass of whiskey. Come over. We'll eat some damn pizza together, whatever. Like, just be here. That's what I need. And I think hopefully songwriting can do that and say, hey, I'm with you. Like, I'm there. I don't necessarily have an answer for you, but I've been there, and that gives people hopefully a little bit of hope.
It does. You literally just laid out what we figured out at these fires I was telling you about. Mm-hmm. Like, we have rules: no preaching, no teaching, no advice, and you can't tell somebody scripture that just was vulnerable about what they're painfully going through, because it's very unvalidating. And we really subscribe to mourning with those who are mourning and rejoicing with those who are rejoicing, and not trying to fix anybody, because the truth is we can't fix anybody. Yeah. But like you said, we will sit there, and we have countless times sat there and wept with a dude that just lost a child, just went through a miscarriage, and we don't say anything. Sometimes we'll just get around him and hold him, and we literally just weep with him, and then sit down, and there's nothing we can say or do. Yeah. But we're not afraid of the mess. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. Yeah. And then the next guy can say, I got a promotion and had sex with my wife for the first time in 8 months, and we'll celebrate with them as we're wiping away the tears from our eyes. But again, that's the tension of life. It's freaking messy. It is. And I don't care if you're a Christian or not. It's messy. It's messy. Yeah. And it's beautiful. And that's the tension, right? Yeah. It's like, we're always looking for these mountaintop experiences, and life is just lived here in the middle. And I don't know, I think there's beauty in just getting good at being okay with that tension of the beauty and the mess. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So how many kids do you have? 4. 4. You just had one daughter with you, I think, when we met. Yeah, Lily was with us. Yeah. She's 10 now. Dang. Yep. What ages? 14, 10, 6, 4. Oh, you're spread out like it's me. Wild. Yeah, it's fun and scary. And I wish I had a book on how to do any of it. Nah, it doesn't exist, man. No, it doesn't. You just get out there and try to do it. Clean up messes. I know you're probably going to screw it up, and your kids will probably need therapy at the end of the day, but you did your best. That's what my sister-in-law says. She's like, we're not saving for our kids for college education. We're saving for therapy for when they get older. Yeah, it's probably true, man. Yeah. So what's next? What's your goal with all of this? Are you just kind of open-handed and like what comes?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to write great songs. That's kind of all I care about. Obviously, I want to be a great dad. I want to be a great husband, and obviously, that comes first. And I want to show kindness to people and be gentle with people and be patient with people. But as far as what I'm trying to do outside of those things, I just want to write great songs, man. And I'd love it if songs like "Kind," like you mentioned, they can reach a different demographic than your typical kind of sort of CCM or even worship vibe. I think there's such a powerful opportunity, especially as we see country music like blowing up, right?
Yeah, Beyonce just came out with a country song.
Like, it's crazy. Everyone's recognizing, to me, it's the power of a great song. And pop music is just garbage. Meaning, I like pop music, but the lyric is garbage. Like, no one cares what you say.
Yeah.
You can say bubblegum over and over, and if the melody and the beat are catchy, people are like, oh, I love this. I feel like country music, and, there's the indie and the Americana, and there's so much inside of that sort of country genre right now, is where people are really still writing songs that speak to being human, speak to the things that we've been talking about, the struggles that we all have, or speak to the mountaintop moments like we were talking about. There's a lot of party country songs as well, and I think there's something beautiful to the tradition of country songwriting that tells a story. It's narrative driven, and it brings you into it, and you find yourself in it. There's something so powerful and special to that. And I feel like I encounter God more through country music than I do a lot of Christian music, to be honest with you.
Me too.
Like, I get smacked by, there's this song called Boy by Lee Brice. That he didn't write it, a girl named Nicole Gallion wrote it. But I remember hearing that for the first time and just weeping and going, man, I want to be a good dad. Like, I want to be a great father. I want to sacrifice my own, comforts and ambitions and life for my kids. I think that's powerful. I think that speaks to regular people, and I want to start doing more of that, because those are the songs that naturally come out of me from experience.
Sure.
From living with my family, from living with my wife. Whether it's a love song or it's a song about watching your kids grow up. It's like everyone can find themselves in that story and go, I want to be a better dad, a better mom, a better, husband, a better friend, a better whatever. I don't know. There's just something powerful to that to me, and I think it reaches a broader audience. It'll always be kingdom-based. It'll always be Jesus-based, but it won't necessarily be holy, 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 or we worship you, Jesus. It might be different lyrics and a different approach. But there's that base. It's almost like kingdom country, kind of that idea. Like, there's something
awesome
to it that's built on something that we all know and believe. But hopefully it helps people. We'll see.
You said something at the Diamond Cross at Heaven on Earth that you put words to something that I felt my whole life, because I'm super drawn to sad music.
Yeah.
And I can't articulate exactly what you said, but
I probably said, like, sad is my happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, I want to feel something. And I think we feel the deepest in painful moments. I think we feel the deepest in quote-unquote sad moments, because it's a more visceral emotion. But I love that feeling. I love being sad because I know I'm alive.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, when you said that, I just was like, it made so much sense to why I freaking love the Counting Crows. And just kind of...
Adam Duritz is the man.
Really, I know.
Wow.
I just saw him this summer for my 5th time. They were in Boise
Awesome.
With my mom and my little sister. It was so fun. But I that really resonated with me, because I've always been drawn to. And again, I think it just validates something that I've felt, and somebody has a gift and puts words to it. And it's like, somebody gets me, somebody sees me, and somebody's saying what I feel inside that I don't know how to convey, because I don't have the gift of writing. You know what I mean? But it just makes me feel not alone, I think, to listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, I know you got to get ready to go for your big show
Still got a
tonight.
shower. I'm all golf sweated up, man.
Yeah. I can't thank you enough for your time with me
Absolutely,
tonight.
man.
And
Thanks for coming out here.
yeah. Before we go, you were like, I'll talk about anything, but you really wanted to share with me what David Simmons means to you and
Yeah.
what he's done for you in your life.
Yeah, I mean, what a hero, man. What a legend, right? You know, he's one of the greatest. He taught me everything I know. How to play guitar, how to sing, how to write songs.
I thought I knew it. That sucker.
You can feel the influence of old DS, man. He's the guy. He's the myth. He's the legend. He's just, you know, he is what he is.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored that again that you would sit down, and I know David Simmons will appreciate your shout out and he'll finally get his due for all that he's influenced you with. Thanks again for your time and for being so generous on your busy schedule and all of that. And hey guys, I encourage you to go check out Cory on social media because, dude, like you really are like part-time comedian.
Trying, man. Trying to bring some levity to this world.
Your stuff on Instagram, oh my gosh, I share it all the time. It's so funny.
I'm glad.
I love that you poke at the things you poke at. It's the best. So go check out Cory. Go check out his last album. I felt like as I re-listened to it again today, like it's the anthem of wild courage. Like there's so many songs in there that resonate with the message of redemption and hope and being honest and real with where you're at and not sweeping everything under the rug. And that's clearly what you've done. And I feel like you write about is taking stuff head on and dealing with it, even when it sucks and is scary. So
that's that record for sure.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. Don't forget our April retreat's coming up. Go to our website to check it out if you're interested in coming, thewildcourage.life. Thanks. Adios for now.